Yes, we are. We're on. Hello, everyone. How are you? Are you all right? Have you had a good week? Yeah? Are you going back to school next week? Oh, how do you guys feel out there? Yeah? It's good to have you with us. So, the theme this week, ups and downs. Ups and downs. We all have them, don't we? Yeah? You have your ups and downs. Yeah, at home, brothers and sisters, things like that. Okay, so that's our thing. So welcome to Cafe Church. It's not up there yet. So the film we're going to be looking at today, we've got the usual scenario. We're watching some clips from the film, and then we're going to have questions from the clips to you guys, and I'll tell you a bit about the film as well. But first of all, before we go into our film, which is Instant Family today, that's our film. Before we go into that, Helen has got a bit of an icebreaker question for you all, so to be thinking about.
Right, good morning everybody. So I want you to be thinking about this. When you think of family, the word family, what three things come to mind? So I want you to talk to the people you've come with, probably your family, and just think about three things that come to mind when you think of the word family.
So, hi everybody out there. How are you? You're all right. So the icebreaker, when you think about the word family, three things come to mind. Maybe you could like something, let us know, then we can read it out the rest here. So family, what three things come to mind?
That's right, No, it's not. No. It's like someone
so that's first thing.
Oh, you did get it.
Someone said because some
Right, I'll go to my school.
not a son. Some people go to run around these people go to our games. Yeah, it can be challenged.
You know, I love
Okay.
Which are the three things? Yeah?
Oh.
Yeah.
We've got three things. What would they, guys? What things did we get?
Well, shall I just go around and ask people to share?
Yes, sure.
Right, I'm coming over here then. I have some good ones over here.
I can tell it was a bit
Go on, I'll go on, Dad, hold them in.
Harry's was Annoying Brothers.
yes.
Annoying Brothers,
We got that one.
Love,
Love.
And Mums and Dads.
Mums and Dads.
Mums and dads. Right, okay, that's good. Any more? What three things come to mind when you think about family?
Yeah, these guys had some.
You want to share?
Yeah?
It can be chaotic.
Yeah,
Very chaotic.
absolutely.
Anything else? Trust.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, you said you would felt safe, didn't you?
Security, we have security.
Yeah.
Security, yeah.
Yeah.
What about,
These
I think
guys
we
had
have
some-
Yes, they told me they did well, but.
They did very well. So,
What that meant.
well, ask them how they did well.
How did you do well?
We got 3 out of 3.
Right, go on then.
Three out of three. Come on.
So what were they? What did we say?
One of them was having fun.
Fun. We got fun, didn't we?
Taking me up to places.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think all of us, Mum, Dad, James, and being a family. So,
Yeah. Just the opposite family, the opposite family.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, we had some, we have a big argument over here.
I know.
Big discussion, big discussion.
Okay. Come on then.
So we narrowed it down to units, unconditional love,
Conditional.
and loyalty.
Loyalty, that's really good, yeah. We had security, didn't we, as well? But we did have sibling rivalry. Yeah, big brothers who were a bit, you know, we had that sort of thing going on. Anything at home? No? We might have some in a minute, some people are joining, so we'll think so. We'll get on with it. Okay. Okay, so as I said, our film today is Instant Family. So just a bit about it. There's lots of ups and downs in this film, lots and lots. It was made in 2018, and it's an American comedy sort of film. You know, we've watched it quite a few times, haven't we, yeah? We like it. But just to note, although it's a 12 rated, it does contain a bit of language, so it's probably aimed more at the older children rather than the younger ones who probably would not find the storyline interesting and might not understand it, so it's more for probably a bit older children. It's a really good film. So the film is about, mainly about a couple, a husband and wife, Pete and Ellie Wagner. Okay, and they decide to start a family. There's a lot of banter within their own family, you know. You get your mum and dad saying, "Oh, when are we going to get grandchildren?" There's this sort of thing going on in their family, so they're deciding what to do and how to go about it because they're not sure. They want to start a family, but they also talk about the children who are already out there and who are already needing all lots of love and security already. You know, those children that are out there in the world. So before we have our first question, we're going to watch our first clip, and it shows that although Pete and Ellie are quite wary about looking into it, they do think of these children and what to do. So we'll watch that now.
Nothing. I was just thinking about what she said about adopting a 5-year-old.
I said that? Yeah, I was joking.
I know, it's kind of crazy, but it just got me thinking, and there's so many kids in foster care, and you're moving from place to place, and they don't have any. And it's the saddest thing I've ever seen. I found this adoption agency, and they're having an orientation.
Oh, no, don't show me that. I don't want to see those little faces. I'm trying to break my heart. It's just not how it works. Ellie, people who take foster kids are really special. These are the kind of people who volunteer when it's not even a holiday. Like, we don't even volunteer on a holiday.
They don't disaster.
Well, like a dirty bomb.
Whatever. And there's a little kid who ends up on our doorstep. Are we going to turn her away because we're not special enough?
That would depend. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I mean, our food rations, the blast radius. Now, if we can't take some offhand remark I made and turn it into a crazy life decision, it was a joke.
Yeah. I know. You're right. You shouldn't be pushed into something that you don't want to do. That's just a nice thought. Good night.
I don't want to make any more jokes like that. Right? Hey, you want to watch a little picture of her? Okay, love you.
Someone knocking at the door, somebody ringing the bell. Someone's knocking at the door, somebody's ringing the bell. Do me a favor, open the door, let him in. Ooh, yeah. Someone's knocking at the door, somebody's ringing the bell. Someone's knocking at the door, somebody's ringing the bell. Do me a favor, open the door, let him in. Yeah, let him in.
Hey, you can't buy these pita chips anymore. They're way too spicy. You get them in no water.
Okay, so the first question is, have you ever had to make a decision where you're not sure that you wanted to do something, but you know it's the right thing to do? So you've got a decision to make. You're not sure, but you know that making the decision is the right thing to do. Has that ever happened to you? Right, you just talk about it with the people you came with, and then I'll come around and ask some people. You were not saying you thought about it.
Yeah, but what voice
What was it?
was a lot snitched, didn't it? What did you do? Told the teacher you was doing something, didn't you? What did you turn around and say?
What about you?
No, what did you say? He snitched you on, didn't he? When you went and told the teacher he was doing something wrong, and you knew that the boy would probably come and say something to you, you did it anyway, didn't you? Because he was being a what? He was being a meanie, wasn't he? He didn't really want to go and tell the teacher, he was just scared of what he might do, didn't he? He said it's the right thing to do, right? Yeah,
it's a good example.
It's tough sometimes, isn't it?
Very tough.
Does he apply them? Gosh. There's lots of things, isn't there? There's some times where I've not called people out, but been in situations where you might be out and about and you've seen something that you've not liked and you've had to go and say something. Sometimes it's something like, would you mind picking that dog poo up off the floor? It's the simple things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things, isn't there? Lots of little things. But it's also about keeping yourself safe, though, isn't it? Because sometimes knowing when to say it and when not to say it. Sorry. Oh, that's what we're saying. We've been watching the news about all these people jumping into the sea and rivers, haven't we? And he was asking why. That's just like, well, some people do some silly things. Yeah, not to get pressured by people.
Yeah. Well done, right? something you knew was right to do, but you
How did you get on with this one?
didn't want to do it.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, that's done, but that works. Hi, guys.
I've got something like that, but not with stars. I love boots. So you think about something like that with the boots. That's what she saw me this morning in the bedroom. She's like, I'm going to wear the boots. I love them. Great, eh? I've got some very simple.
Yeah. Some ways that one's probably more a lot more.
We're doing well.
Did you guys come up with one? Something that you didn't want to do, but you knew was right?
We're saying about schools sometimes making the right decision. Indy's just said, she knows it's the right thing to do. She just wants to.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, but you knew it was the right thing to do. That's a really good one.
But one of the big ones for me is actually having the COVID vaccines. Well, vaccines, I don't like anything like of course. You know you got yeah,
That's interesting.
I might not I got to yeah, well our manager was for me, so I had to have a job. Yeah, but he wanted to you happen to be off. Because she wanted to have a sign it. Yeah. So it's because it's all the like it's all just getting back to normal a bit. Which they go back this time, I think. I just think it's probably inevitable. Yeah, but they were after I said so I just think we're going to do it. And now between the fence being abroad this week, but we just said really it wasn't that fussed with the weather. What we did though is we made the decision not to go for it. Yeah, just so it wouldn't. Yeah, it's going to be around. Yeah, I think we're going to book next year. We'll get a cancellation thing. We always go away. I was telling them to say I haven't seen week holiday in October, so we always go the first week. We always go like the Canaries. Yeah. We said last year, we'll do August, because then we're guaranteed the weather. And we didn't go in, we were me and Daddy's 40th, but that's right, isn't it? Excellent. Yeah. Next year. Right, how are we doing?
We're doing good. We're probably ready to share. Yeah, right, okay, we'll start over here.
I always say that I work for myself, so sometimes people might come to me and say, here's some money, can you do this? But I'm not always the best person to do that. So I'm looking at my to do that job.
Right,
so
okay.
I'm just looking at my dilemma. Do I want the money, or should I give this to somebody else who is more suitable?
Right, okay.
So
yeah, okay. So in your workplace as well?
Well, that is his workplace.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the workplace, it's not just in families, it's a workplace. And
yeah,
all different scenarios, isn't it?
yeah.
Good one, yeah.
Okay.
We've actually got one online here as well. Maybe if you made a mistake or done something that you shouldn't, and you don't really want to admit it, but you know really it's the right thing to do.
Well, that's really
That's a really
interesting.
good one.
That's a really good one, and it's also really interesting because you had exactly the same thing, didn't you?
Did you? You had the same
Yeah,
word.
you're very good at coming to mummy and owning up to something if you've done something wrong. That's a really
Well
good
done you, well done you. Even though it's difficult to do, you know you've got to do it. So that's a good one.
We
Thank
had
you,
something similar over here. Would you like to share yours?
When we arguing, and I know it's the right thing to do to apologise.
So when you're having an argument, it's the right thing to do to apologise, which is sometimes really hard, isn't it, to do?
Yeah, it's really hard.
You don't really want to apologise.
Okay, do you want to share from right to back? Does Dad want to share?
No.
He needs to, if I send him to go out, and he said he doesn't want to, obviously someone can do it, things like that, he knows it's the right thing to do, but to get out rather than that's what he's doing.
Yeah, so coming away from the computer to spend time outside.
Bet loads of people are, so coming away from the computer inside and going outside, into the fresh air.
Yeah.
You want to stay on that computer, but you know it's the right thing to do to get out there, and you should have fun outside, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay, anybody else want to share?
Indy's got one.
I don't want to do it, but
My daughter said. So we've had this.
Homework.
So homework.
Homework.
Yeah, we just said homework before. You know we don't want to do it, but you've got to do it.
And you had one, didn't you? What was yours?
That was something I had to tell the teacher to do the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so you had to tell a teacher about something that someone was doing wrong, but you were worried that they might kind of retaliate towards you, but you knew it was the right thing.
And it's a brave thing to do
It's
as
a
well.
brave thing
That's a
to
really
do.
brave thing to do, to sort of tell the truth if somebody's doing something wrong.
Anybody else want to share anything? Brian, do you want to share yours?
Well, we thought we had to go to the Philippines to teach at a Christian school for a few years. And we thought we ought to do it, but it's still very hard to just leave everything here and go and do it. I think Jonathan had a similar one.
Teaching in different countries, asking to leave your home. To do it's the right thing.
Yeah, I had a big decision to leave my company after 16 years and go and join a mission organization called Operation Mobilization. It took me 2 years to make that decision. It was a very difficult decision because I was well in my company and was expecting to be a ship's captain very soon. But soon after joining this mission ship, within a short time, the captain became ill and I had to take over, and it was my privilege to take the ship all the way right around Africa and visiting many countries and ports. So it just shows the Lord will bless your decision.
Yes, yes. It's quite a hard decision to make, to leave the security of your job to go off and do something else that's, unknown really. So I've got some really good ones there. Oh, I've got thing on now, I can't see what's doing. So they were really good, thanks for those. So we'll move on with the story a bit. So Pete and Ellie decide to look into adoption through the foster care system, and they go to like a foster care group, which is led by social workers Karen and Sharon. And at a fair to meet foster children, Ellie and Pete are talking, and they're sort of discussing what they think. And it's like, it's in America, it's like a fair with lots of children, lots of parents, So they're talking, and Ellie sort of says that she's reluctant to foster or adopt a teenager. So she's then confronted by 15-year-old Lizzie, a girl that's there, and Lizzie really impresses them both and spurs them on to go and talk to Karen and Sharon about fostering her. And it turns out that Lizzie has also got a brother and a sister, 10-year-old Juan and 6-year-old Rita, but their mother is currently in prison. So Pete and Ellie meet with Lizzie and the siblings, and it doesn't go as expected. They're a bit worried, and it leads them to reconsider their thoughts. And at a Thanksgiving dinner with their family, they tell them that they've decided not to go ahead after all and not to do fostering. But what comes next is quite surprising because their family sort of say, well, we didn't expect you to do it anyway, actually. We didn't think you would and we didn't think it was probably the right decision, so, you know, it's fine. And Ellie sort of has a total turn of emotions and says, well, actually, why didn't you think that? And actually, we could do it, and actually, we're going to do it. So she totally turns and sort of says, we're going to go for it. So this is what we're going to do. And they do. So as the title suggests, sort of like overnight, they do become like an instant family. And at first, they feel wonderful and they feel amazing people for doing this, for not taking just one, but 3 children into their home, giving them support and love. This is until Lizzie, Juan and Lita actually move in and life becomes absolutely unpredictable and, like you said, very chaotic. Very chaotic. And in our second clip, we're going to see how on Christmas Day, they're all sitting down to their Christmas lunch, which should be really perfectly festive, but it doesn't quite go to plan. So we'll watch that now.
And we want to thank the Lord for our first Christmas meal, and we want to give thanks for this lovely meal, and also this bounty of super fun cardboard boxes. Amen.
Amen. Okay, tuck in, everybody.
Where's my potato chips?
Oh, we're not having chips tonight, Munchkin, sorry.
I want my chips.
Lita, Lizzie, Pete and I worked really hard on this dinner, and there's lots of yummy food for you to eat.
Hey,
No, okay? I got this.
why are you yelling at me? I'm just trying to help you.
I'm not yelling. I am. Just then, but it's, look. Lita, don't do what Lizzie just said. What did you say, Quattro? Go to your bedroom.
No, Quattro means quart of milk, right? She said, you're not gonna have potato chips, but you will drink that milk.
And ADHD have this. That's fine. Okay, fine. Okay, let's try some of this meatloaf, okay?
Yeah, I don't think she's getting on board with the plan, Holly. You sure you don't want to just give her some chips?
No, we're not giving her chips. We're just gonna eat.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't cry. Watch your feet, okay?
You give those to me.
Just say that, Mom.
You really don't okay.
Does it? Oh, well, sorry.
Oh, right, okay, so it probably should have gone on a bit longer than that. So just to say that in the end, they put the fire out with tomato sauce. It goes all over Lita, and she sort of gets up like, and then Lizzie steps in and sorts the problem and leads her away. But Pete and Ellie are just sort of sat there going, what just happened? What just happened? It was a bit of a shock that it all turned out so bizarrely. So now we've got our second question.
Okay, so the second question is, have you ever tried to plan something perfect and it's all gone wrong? Okay, so just have a chat about that with the people that you're with. Something perfect that went wrong.
Okay, so second question. I think we've all done this. I'm sure we've all done this. Right? We're trying to plan something that doesn't make us lovely, so it's all gone terribly wrong. Have you ever done that? You can write something in, let us know what's happened in your life.
I was very interested.
Hello. I think I spoke to you
I was late this morning.
Thoughts, guys? No, no. Right, that's all right. That's okay. Any thoughts?
The weeks just getting every time and trying and then when you find the lots of competition, it's the birthday. Yeah, I'm good,
So did you, after you got off the train, did you carry on?
Yeah, she's like, oh, no, things are closed now, that must be yeah. This year, I'm going to again. We've got some people. You got any more?
Okay, has anybody got anything you'd like to share? Yeah, Indy.
When you plan like holidays,
All right, okay, so when you plan a holiday and COVID happens, I expect that to happen to lots of us. Really good one over here from Zena.
when I went to a gymnastics competition and I was nearly falling to roll for the whole week, but then when I got to my, on the beat, and when I got to my competition, I didn't land it and I fell off.
Oh, okay, so
she fell off the beam when she'd been practicing for gymnastics competition all week.
And it got so perfectly, and then at the competition, you went a bit wrong.
You did.
That's just how it goes. Yeah.
And then James has got one over here.
So, one day I was playing a game at school, but no one showed up, and I was trying to tell everyone if they wanted to play me, but no one showed up.
Oh, no,
that's sad.
That's not You're okay. You're okay. Yeah, you carried on. Yeah.
And these guys was planning a party.
Yeah, just before COVID hit, planning an Easter party for the karate club. Then obviously COVID hit, we cancelled it. So we bought all the food, all the Easter
eggs. No, so all the food
so then, and everything. On the upside, we donated all the Easter eggs that we bought to food bank.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. So some good came out of that. So you didn't have your party, but the food got donated to the food bank. So that's good. We've had one here baking a birthday cake, but I'm not sure actually what went wrong. The birthday cake, obviously.
Henry baked a birthday cake once. That didn't kind of work out or come out right.
No.
But to tell you what, it looked like when he put the icing on top of it, it looked like a volcano. It was amazing, and it tasted fantastic.
Perfect. That's all that matters, really.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share? There was a good one about getting stuck in a maze.
Stuck in a maze?
No, that's not good.
Stuck in a maze? Yeah. With a fractious toddler.
Oh. A fractious toddler.
Perfect day out, gone wrong.
Anybody else want to share, or have we all shared now?
Okay, so we'll keep going. Yeah. So this mishap at Christmas, it turned out really quite badly, didn't it? But anyway, the family carried on. There's loads more ups and downs in the film. On a day trip out, Lizzie disappears with a friend, doesn't come back till late, which causes them to ground her, which then fuels her dislike for her foster parents. But there's loads of heartwarming moments too, where the little ones tell Pete and Ellie that they love them, they call them Mummy and Daddy. But the main theme of the film is Lizzie secretly hoping to get back to her biological mum and return to her, so that they could be a family. And in fact, Pete and Ellie do meet Carla, who is their children's mother, and she's been released from prison and she wants to reunite with her children. The social workers do explain to Pete and Ellie that that's their main point, to try and get the families back together, which must be incredibly hard for foster parents to hear, but that's the main thing thing to do. So life gets very difficult because as they meet Carla, their mom, it disrupts family life and the children become unruly and it leaves Pete and Ellie feeling quite frustrated and upset. And one day, Pete and Ellie are horrified to discover that Lizzie has a big problem with the kid at school. There's a big mistake and they confront the wrong student and things go wrong and Pete and Ellie accidentally get arrested for leaving Juan and Lita in the car unattended while they sort this problem at school for Lizzie. So they go home that night feeling so despondent, but Sandy, Pete's mum, comes in and reassures them that they need to say to Lizzie that they love her and that to reassure them that Lizzie has got home with them. And sometimes, that's the best thing. But the children's court hearing is the next day, and the judge reads Lizzie's statement detailing Pete and Ellie's actions in a negative light, and he refuses to let Ellie actually read a letter that she's written to Lizzie, so that really she couldn't put across how she feels. It's decided there and then that the children will return to Carla's care, their mum, and it's the very next day. So it's devastating for Pete and Ellie to hear this. And also, Juan and Lita are equally as devastated because they actually don't want to leave their foster parents. They've grown to love them and they want to stay. But Lizzie is very determined to keep her family together and get back to her mum. So the next day, Karen and Sharon arrive to inform the children that actually their mother isn't going to come and pick them up that day, that it's all gone a bit wrong, she's not coming to them, she failed to appear that morning and she's gone back to drug use. And she says she cannot care for her children. So heartbroken, Lizzie runs away. She doesn't know what to do. She runs away, but Pete and Ellie chase after her. And it's quite emotional, really. They find her, and Ellie finally gets to read Lizzie the letter that she's written to her, reassuring her that she loves her, that they can't build this family without her because they need her, and that basically she was the main building block that started them to want to adopt and foster things like that. So Lizzie finally understands that she is loved and that she can be a real family with these people. And in our final clip, it shows the outcome of the film where the family are actually back in court 4 months later, but this time happily. And before our final question, we'll watch that.
Good morning, folks. Family court is important.
Wait! Oh, wait! Grandma Sandy's in the house. What did you get? How'd you even make it? Stop it! Listen, you're staying together, safe for me. Move over. Go ahead, Judge.
Thank you, Grandma Sandy. Family court is important work, but it's difficult work. We spend day in and day out dealing with things that we feel no family should have to go through. So on these rare days, when we get to smile at work, these days mean a great deal to all of us. And I may not look it, but I'm a huge cornball, and I live for this. Honey? We are here today to officially create a new family. Peter, Eleanor Wagner, do you wish to adopt Juan, Lita, and Lizzie into your family today?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's your other.
It's just a song.
Juan, Lita, and Lizzie, would you like Peter and Eleanor to be your mom and dad?
Sure. Yes, please.
Well then, the authority vested in me by the state of California, announce you a family.
Oh, I'm part of this family too.
I'd like to be a picture.
Are you sure we're not? We showed up. Anything like that.
Anybody else?
successfully, and they succeed in their ambition to have a family unit made up of the two adoptive parents and 3 children. So the final question is, have you ever found yourself working towards something very difficult, worrying that it might not happen, and then suddenly it does, and it's better than ever you could have imagined? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to talk about that, and then we'll have a quick question and answer.
So the next question, found yourself working towards something really difficult, worrying about it, that it might turn out, and then it turned out hugely successful. Yeah, so it's very
Hello, have you got anything?
fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah, a lot of these things scenarios seem to be brought about worrying about things that they don't need to worry about. Yeah.
Okay, I think we should.
Right, okay, I think we're ready. Who would like to share? We've got some really good answers. Okay, Zena.
When I was in year 4, I was doing a timetable test, and I was worried I wouldn't get all 25 right, and I got all 25 right. There's 2 people in our class, me and my friend.
Well done. Okay, so we're going to have times tables. Indeed.
When I'm going to my gymnastics competitions and I'm worrying that it won't go right and it'll all go wrong, but then something does go right.
Sure.
Get medals. And competitions. I'm worried about it, but it goes right in the end. It's worth doing.
Okay, anybody else like to share? Joe?
Oh, yeah, Joyce was a good one.
Well, I was thinking back to when I was a teacher a long time ago, and because I was in charge of music, I had to do things like the Christmas Day and inductions of all the children. And I was telling Andrew about that, but then I've just remembered the first time that I was at Skirton School, we walked all the children to St Luke's Church for a Christingle. And with the children that we had, it would be a disaster. It was absolutely beautiful.
So funny things as a teacher, funny things as a teacher, and for the children, it's a worry. but then it worked out better than ever.
Yes, but we know we can depend on the children, really.
Yeah. We've got a career change for somebody out there, so that's quite a hard decision to make, but it was the right decision. Right.
Okay, does anybody else got anything they want to share, or are we all shared now?
No, we're all shared.
We're all
Yeah.
shared.
Okay, good. Well, I might do a wrap up then. Let me read you just from a word of scripture. It's consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. I wonder why God sends kind of ups and downs. Why does he send peaks and troughs in our lives? I don't know about you, but my suspicion is that if you're like me, life tends to go up and down a lot. It might be at work. You might be loving work for a period of time. It's just the best. Everything seems to be going great. And then you hit some extraordinary challenges. And you know what? It's so hard. You think, I'm no good at this, it's rubbish, da-da-da-da-da. We go from periods that are really high down to periods that are low. But then again, later, it goes back up high again. Or maybe it's friends, our affection for our friends. Sometimes we're really close to someone, and then for whatever reason, we drift away from them. And then maybe we get close to them again. Our relationships with people, our affection, for people changes. Or maybe we go between sickness and health. I don't know about you, I'm going through some sickness at the moment. A couple of months ago, I felt the healthiest I'd been in ages. Felt fantastic, really healthy. Why do we go through these ups and downs? What's God doing in our lives? In that film we just watched, they went through a heap of ups and downs. Some great times with those kids, but also some really, really hard times as well. Why does God put us through these kind of ups and downs? Well, he says that we ought to consider it pure joy. That's weird, isn't it? That's really weird. I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm going through a trough, when I'm going through a down period, I'm likely to feel anxious, maybe a bit depressed, maybe a bit angry, maybe a bit frustrated. Pure joy is not the natural thing for me. Why does he say we're to consider it pure joy when we're going through a difficult period? It's because of the outcome that takes place. He says that as we go through this difficult time, our faith is being tested. He doesn't mean that we're going to either pass or fail. No, we have a genuine faith, but it's being tested in a similar way to the way in which a metal is tested. So when a metallurgist wants to purify a metal, they heat it up, and then the dross or the impurities come out at the top, they take them away, and what's left is the pure metal. That's what God's doing with us. When we go through a difficult period, God's turning the heat up on us. But the reason he's doing that is so that our faith might become, that it might grow. Our little faith might get bigger. And the result of that is that ultimately we become mature. And part of that idea of being mature is being single-minded for God. And as we're going through this difficult time, what do? What's his suggestion? Well, his suggestion is that we seek God's wisdom. We have a look at God's map, the Bible, and we check it out. And particularly the guy who's writing this would have been thinking about books like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, maybe even Job and Ruth and Esther. Some of my favourite books in the Bible. Books of the Bible where people go through difficult times, but where they see how they can trust God in those difficult times. How practically that's going to look like. Why does God send difficult times? Well, it's a bit like C.S. Lewis says in the Screwtape Letters. It's a bit like a child that's learning how to walk. At some point, the parent, the loving parent, needs to take away the hand and allow that child to have a go at walking themselves. And that's what God is doing with us. He's giving us this opportunity when we go through a difficult period to choose to love Him from our own heart, from our own volition, to trust Him and to live His way. And as we do that, our faith will grow. Listen to what he says in the Screwtape Letters. He, speaking of God, wants them, speaking of us Christians, to learn to walk. And he must therefore, that's God, take away his hand, and if only the will to walk is really there, he's really pleased, even with their, or rather our, stumbles. Even the very first steps that we make in faith, on our own, from our own heart, God is pleased with it. Let's pray. Father God, when we go through difficult times, we find them extraordinarily difficult. Help us to treat them as joy, knowing that you're at work in our life, growing our faith. Help us to be the sort of people who seriously seek your wisdom so that we know how to live your way to help us to navigate through this difficult time. And if we only stumble our way through, thank you that you are very proud of us. Amen. I'm just going to quickly rush through the notices. The only thing I really want to tell you about, a couple of things. One is the Jacob's Join. Can we have that slide, please, Henry? That's coming up this Wednesday. It's for deeper, but hey, if you want to join us, you're very welcome. It's going to be in St. Peter's Hall. We're going to do a Jacob's Joy, and it's going to be our first meeting, and we're going to discuss what we're going to do together in the coming month or two. Yeah. And that should be really cool and far out. Deeper is a chance to go deeper, to grow our faith, to do exactly what we're talking about. Have a go at looking at God's wisdom and putting it into practice. We usually meet between 7:30 and 9 on a Wednesday evening, but we're going to do an earlier one for the Jacob's Joy, 6 to 8. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you about is that next week we're going to start a series called Saying Goodbye. That's the first one, because of course we are saying goodbye. And Jenny and I are heading back to Australia, and with Henry. Miles is staying here. And it's the first one will be how it's a time of growth for us all. That's our first series, and it's in Kings, 1 and 2 Kings. And the first one is called There's No King But God. And it's a bit about how we'll probably explore the theme that, you know what, I'm firmly convinced that someone really good is going to come here. I'm firmly convinced, under God, someone really good is going to come here and be with you. But in the meantime, it's a chance for you and for me to grow, and that's kind of cool. Well, God bless. Take care. Keep safe. Let's go in peace to love and serve the Lord in the name of Christ. Amen. See you next week.
I didn't realise it was a facial suggestion. Yes, I thought you know what it was. Thank you for everything. Thank you for participation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks. Well trained. Yeah, she's very good, isn't she? Yeah, she is. She's brilliant. Wife, kind of. See you later. Where'd you go to gymnastics? Well, we didn't actually really go back either, so we went to Miss Ellie, so, we were just, she was